Ladies, pack your hoe bag.
Who you calling a hoe?
Pour up a drink and start.
That's a little kinky.
Karen.
Streaming 24/7 across all platforms.
24/7.
Yes, sir.
Live on sayitloud.com. Lock it in.
Y'all keep it locked right here.
It is another episode of Say It Loud, and it is your favorite GILF here, Karen L. In my hot seat today is Devi Ward Erickson. Hi, Devi. Thank you for being here. How are you?
Hey, Karen L. I am absolutely awesome. Thank you for having me.
I am so excited to have you here. I've been following you. I've been on your website tons of times. I think that there's so much you can share with the Say It Loud listeners. Why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Devi Ward Erickson. I live in Canada. I was born in the United States. I am an American citizen, but I married a Canadian, and now I get to live here. I like it. It's cold but awesome. And my people are from Detroit. So
Wow.
I was born in Washington, D.C., and my parents moved around a lot, but both of them were from Detroit, born and raised. And that's where I like to say that I'm from D-Town. And I started my adult journey, interestingly, as a stripper in D-Town. And then I moved from that into becoming a monk of the Ashaya order. So I spent a decade as a monk meditating in the mountains. And then I moved to Kauai, Hawaii, and encountered Tibetan Buddhist Tantra. And so that is how I got into the field that I'm in. It was part of my spiritual path, interestingly enough.
Really? See, I would have never guessed that. That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So you didn't plan any of this?
No. No, in fact, so I was a stripper, but it's not like I was sexually liberated. I was a stripper because I was a dancer, and I'm a Gen Xer. you're here.
Yes, let's hope for the best. Wait, what happened? All right, we're gonna go as fast as we can and hope for the best. This is life. This is real life. This is the shit that happens to me.
Technology. It's wild.
Yeah, it's so crazy because before COVID, getting interviews were so hard, and the reach you had was so difficult. And now it's like everybody's at your fingertips as long as technology is, works with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So tell us how you got. I mean, I know how you said you started this, but you didn't plan for any of this?
No. So it was a big surprise. So, when I was a stripper, people think, oh, you're a stripper, you're so sexually progressive. No, it's just that I was a dancer. I was in college for dancing, and I grew up with flash dance. So my idea of a stripper was like Jennifer Beal, like chairs and water, like performances. So that's what I thought it was. When I got to the strip clubs and learned what it was really about, it was lap dances and stiletto heels. It was a whole other ballgame. But from my point of view, I had already committed to this plan of action, so I was determined to see it through. So I was a stripper in Detroit for 3 years. That did not make me sexually awakened in any way. I'm an exhibitionist and I like to dance. That's pretty much what that was about. And then being a monk, it was really about connecting with my spirituality, and really it was a way of coping with the amount of trauma that I was suffering from. It was a way of coping with that trauma without using drugs and alcohol and all sorts of other things. And then so becoming a tantrika and encountering tantra, sexual tantra, was a complete surprise, and it was not anything that I was looking for. I was looking for healing. I was looking for healing of my energy body and healing, like spiritual awakening, but I was not looking to address anything sexual at all. So when I first started learning tantra, I didn't know anything about my G-spot. I didn't have orgasms. I was terrified of asking for what I wanted in bed. I mean, I was like so sexually shut down, and I don't know what the word is. I was just shut down, and I liked sex, but I was not sexually empowered. And I very much did not understand the connection between sexual empowerment and personal empowerment.
Right. And that's a far way to go to figure that out. You know what I mean? Because a lot of people don't figure it out at all.
Well, yeah, and the only reason I figured it out is because that was the journey that I went on, right? So it's not like I thought to myself, it wasn't a conceptual thing I was chasing. It was through the actual process of healing my childhood sexual abuse trauma and my childhood trauma in general through pleasure and orgasm. It was through that process that I had the lived experience of, oh my God, as I let go of these sexual hang-ups, so to speak, or these blocks, as we call them in our lingo, as I let go of these blocks and I become more free and more expressive and more connected to my body and to my pleasure, I become more powered in every area of my life. So it was something that I experienced through living it, not through thinking it. Wow.
That's such a powerful statement to make, that being able to kind of understand our traumas and our awareness in all aspects of our life, and I think a lot of people they kind of isolate one and think that it has nothing to do with the other. And so how does someone begin a journey like this?
Yeah, so probably not the same way that I did. There's a lot more. And there's a lot more information available now than, again, this was 13 years. The field has changed tremendously. There's been an awakening of, sexual awareness. And even, if we look at the young people these days, it's like, you have to be addressing the issues of pronouns and, gender orientation and sexual orientation. Like, that's what our children essentially are teaching us and our grandchildren are teaching us. So there's a lot of information available. So how do you get started in this? Well, I would say number one, just acknowledge that you want to learn and grow. And that's the thing, like for most of us in mainstream society, sex is filled with so much shame and so much guilt and so much taboo, and it's either like porn or nothing. Like there's not a middle,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like porn or nothing.
Yeah.
Those are your choices.
Right.
And so, but the reality is that, humans as human beings, we're naturally curious, and we're inherently sexual. And so I really encourage people to engage or embark upon this journey of sexual awakening with a spirit of curiosity. Not as like this heavy duty, like this, it's got to be hard. And, I've got to chip through this lifetime of trauma. Maybe just like, hey, I wonder how many different kinds of orgasms I can have. And I wonder, if my partner can have multiple orgasms. I wonder if there's a connection between the pleasure I'm experiencing and the way I feel in my mind and body. So being curious and having this interest in expanding as opposed to trying to fix something that's broken. I can assure you, no matter what your sexual issue is, you're not broken. You're not broken. I can assure you. And very often there is a holistic way of addressing any sexual issues that may be arising for you. And very often, so this is statistics show that 90% of the time when we're dealing with sexual issues, if they are not rooted in a physiological issue, like you actually have something physically wrong in your, going on in your body, if they're not rooted in a physical issue, they're almost always rooted in an emotional or psychological issue.
Wow. Yeah. Right. So there's probably more of that than there is.
Yes, I would say. Yeah. So I would say, I've been doing this for 13 years, and I would say almost every sexual issue that people have. So like for men, they struggle with erectile dysfunction or premature ejaculation or anorgasmia. For women, very often it's not realizing their orgasmic potential or not having orgasms during penetrative intercourse. These are the issues that people usually have. And we have been able to address them holistically with tantric methods, yogic methods, personal, self-connection exercises that within weeks to months, these issues completely evaporate. So 9 times out of 10, whatever your sexual issue is, it's usually emotionally and psychologically based.
Wow. That's it. That's crazy to think about, because so many people are walking around with so much emotional baggage that now is impacting so many other parts of your life.
Absolutely.
Right. And we don't necessarily always connect it to the physical sense or to the sexual part.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But mind and body are one organism. So what affects your mind is going to affect your body. And the way I think of it, it's mind, psychological, but heart, emotional. Those are in unison, right? They dance in union. Right. What's in your heart is going to influence what's in your mind. And what's in your mind is going to influence how you feel in your heart. And all of that influences your body. Like, what do they call? Biofeedback studies show specifically, like if you experience certain emotions, your body, there's a chemical response in your body. If you feel joy and pleasure, you get oxytocin, you get dopamine, you get endorphins, you feel good. When you feel, when you have a lot of shame or guilt or you feel crappy, your body's producing toxins, quite literally, and chemicals that can create illness in your life.
Yeah. So how do people say, okay, I'm aware, I am going to embark on this journey, I'm open to learn, what do I do next?
Ooh, yeah, that's a great question. Well, I'm on this radio show, so you can go ahead and buy my book. Shake Your Soul Song, A Woman's Guide to Self-Empowerment Through the Art of Self-Pleasure. And that's like a little primer for you. It's a wonderful way to dip your toe in and start to understand the concept of using pleasure as medicine, and not just sexual pleasure, but every type of pleasure: sensual pleasure, emotional pleasure, psychological pleasure, spiritual pleasure, as a way of healing and experiencing more peace and joy in every area of life. So that would be my recommendation. And if you, of course, and if you don't resonate with that book specifically, I will guide you to our website, authentictantra.com, because we have a whole list of books that we recommend based on what we study and what we have been studying for the last 13 years, not just myself, but my colleagues as well. So that's a really great place to start. There's a number of really excellent authors So I would say getting some reading material is probably the best place to start, and just kind of dip your toe in, start learning more about the concepts around sexuality, healing, pleasure, awakening. And then from there will be resources. It's kind of like following a trail of, I don't want to say breadcrumbs, but following a trail of jewels.
Right.
A trail of jewels. Yeah.
That's very interesting, because I feel like a lot of people have interest, but they don't want to say they have interest. I want to know what tantric sex is. I want to know what healing is. I want to know what sound, mind, body, joy looks like and feels like. And oftentimes we don't connect the two, or we kind of get lost in how we need to get there.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And again, that's because human beings are holistic. Like, this is not pie in the sky stuff. This is factual. Like, Western science demonstrates what we think, what we feel has an impact on our physiology. Period. Like, it's a fact. So we're not these separate containers. We are whole beings. And part of what it is to be human is to be sexual, is to be sensual, is to be emotional, is to be spiritual. And the Western society that we live in is very compartmentalized. It's very fragmented. And I think that, that's why we, as a society, there's such a large degree of mental health issues, because we're not meant to live all fragmented and separated. We're meant to live as holistic beings.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. So let's get into what is tantric.
Yeah. So Tantra is a spiritual science that originated in India several thousand years ago. And most people think that Tantra is specifically an Indian practice. But actually, there's a multitude of different styles and lineages of Tantra. So, for example, I'm trained in a specific lineage of Tantric Buddhism, or Tibetan Tantric Buddhist Tantra. And some of the research that I've been doing recently, the reality is that Tantra actually originated from people in various places in Africa. So there's archaeological, linguistic, and genetic evidence that confirms that the roots of Tantra, which began in northern India, actually were born out of traditions and ritual and people and practices that originated in Ethiopia, Nubia, and Sudan, and other places as well. So the roots of Tantra can, just like the roots of humanity, can be traced back to Africa. And originally, it was a tradition that worshipped women, worshipped Black women specifically.
Yeah, I love it. I'm here for it.
Yeah, that's actually the roots of Tantra. And then this was, 10,000 years ago. So a lot has evolved since then. And as I said, today in modern times, we've got, Tibetan Buddhist Tantra. There's various schools and traditions of Indian Tantra. There's Hindu Tantra. There's Shivite Tantra. There's all sorts of orientations to Tantra. In the West, what most people are referring to in terms when they say Tantra or Tantric, they're thinking of Western Neo-Tantra. And Western Neo-Tantra is kind of a bastardized version of Tantra in some cases. There's some very good Western Neo-Tantra, but a lot of it is methods and schools of thought have been appropriated from these very ancient traditions.
Oh, excellent. So it's kind of like grown into something different from its origination, but it's been a snowball.
Yeah, it's been a snowball. It's been a snowball. And, and I will say it's also very appropriate. It's all very tantric that it's grown and evolved, because part of Tantra, like the core of Tantric teachings, they will adapt to meet the needs of the student and the practitioner, and they will adapt to meet the needs of the time that we're living in. So what was happening 5,000 years ago in Tantra is not necessarily going to apply to what's happening in 2022 in terms of Tantra and what we need as practitioners here in the West.
So how would you explain it to someone who's never heard of it before?
Yeah. So what I usually say is it's a spiritual science. I like to pay homage to where it came from. That was developed in India several thousand years ago. And depending on your level, of practice, like what you want to do with it, it can be as simple as meditating and cultivating more mindfulness in and out of the bedroom. It can be as simple as doing movement practices to release stuck energy and to build strength and tone and body, and strength and tone in your body. It can be about connecting to yourself and to your partner to enhance intimacy with your relationship and with all of your relationships, because it's not just limited to you and your partner.
Right.
We are enriched and flourish when we have healthy community around us. And it's about cultivating mindful pleasure. So it's like, I call it the antidote to porn culture, is what Tantra is. And I want to say that, like, from my orientation, porn can be a wonderful tool when it's used mindfully, but it can also be very destructive if we're using it without caution and without presence. And so Tantra gives us methods, Tantra yoga gives us methods to work with our sexual pleasure and work with our sexual energy in a way that's really constructive and really supportive and really expansive.
Wow. That's amazing. Now let's talk about this exchange of energy.
Yeah.
Because I feel I'm very big on this. I talk about this. I've done a whole show about this, how people exchange energy, and how at times you can see someone and before they got into this relationship, they were so happy and they looked so great and life was going so good. And then they get into this relationship and they have like bags under their eyes and they're miserable and they're not smiling and their shoulders aren't back. And you see that energy just kind of drains out of them. Yeah. And I don't know if I'm the only person that thinks that way, but I'm like, I think that sex is an exchange of energy and we just can't be out here exchanging energy with everybody.
Yeah, well, we're always exchanging energy. That's what we are as human beings. So we're constantly transmitting and we're constantly receiving. And it's interesting because I was just reading an article by Resmaa Menakem, who wrote my grandmother's hands, and he was writing about exactly that, how human beings were constantly transmitting and we're constantly receiving energy. Right? We are energetic beings. That's basically like all that's going on is energy. That's expressed in matter, right? So in terms of exchanging energy via sex, absolutely, that's kind of the whole point. That's what we're doing when we're making love. When we're making love, we are nourishing and feeding our energy body and our partner's energy body. If the intimate connection is unhealthy or toxic, then instead of exchanging energy, you're going to be draining each other's energy or toxifying each other's energy. So the key is to be right in your heart. I mean, really, that's the key, to be rooted in honesty and integrity and love. And that doesn't mean you have to be in love and get married, but love meaning respect for the other person's humanity, respect for yourself and the other person, consideration, kindness, compassion, and caring. That all translates as love to the body, mind, and spirit. So ensuring that your sex and the sex between you two is rooted in mutual respect, appreciation, and value is going to prevent toxic shit from happening.
Wow. That's very powerful. That's very powerful, because there's people walking around saying, I love this person and I love that person, but you're not healthy for each other, because it's easy to say the words, but not actually feel that in your heart or exchange that necessary energy. Sometimes what we say and what we feel and what we're giving out are not the same thing.
Exactly. And that's very, very true. And something that really gets in the way for partners when they do love each other is their unprocessed trauma. So everybody living in the United States is suffering from some type of trauma.
We are right now. Yes,
we are. Yes. And particularly for people of color, we have a lineage of trauma that we carry literally in our cells, in our DNA. And so a lot of that, any unprocessed or unrecognized trauma is going to appear in your relationships. And so the most common type of trauma that arises in relationships is attachment trauma, bonding trauma from when we were children and we didn't have our needs for love met sufficiently from our caregivers. And that is going to play out in your most intimate relationships. Absolutely, for sure.
Wow. It's like a whole therapy session.
It is.
There's somebody listening right now going, oh my God. I don't, now it all makes sense. Yeah. Or there's somebody listening going, I know somebody just like that. So there's, that's okay, because there's probably more people who have that need than don't. Right. But we just don't know how to express that. So let's talk a little bit about trauma, because we know that there's women that deal with trauma, that, everything from how we're raised and what the media tells us about sex and sexuality and sensuality, and pleasure and our bodies, and childbearing, right? Because our demographic here is 35 to 44. But then also there's men, and a lot of times we don't talk about men and the fact that they deal with trauma.
Absolutely.
And how these two people now meet each other and try to have a healthy relationship, try to have a healthy sexual bond, with all of this baggage. So what do we do? How do we get there?
Yeah, well, number one, it's first recognizing that most of the pain that you're experiencing in your relationship and your sexuality is rooted in trauma. So as I for me, that was like a sigh of relief to know that it's not me. I'm not broken. I'm not effed up. It's actually the baggage that's not even mine, that I was kind of forced to carry through my life. So just recognizing that you are not your issues, right? That your issues are a manifestation of stuff that has been unresolved, but with support, you can heal it. With support, you can be free of it. There's something called post-traumatic growth. And that's for, people like me who've experienced tremendous trauma, and we've moved through it. We've healed it. We've resolved it. And so now we're in the state of growth and expansion. That's possible for every human being on this planet. So once you recognize that, wow, I've got some shit, and it would behoove me and my relationships to deal with that shit, then taking the steps to do that. So I'm a big fan of having support. So I really encourage somatically based, or, body-based. Somatic means of the body. So body-based healing, body-based counseling, body-based therapy. There's no, let go of any stigma about counseling and therapy. It's really just about having someone who can give you guidance and support. And we need that. We all need that. It's crazy to think
we all need that. We all need
that. It's crazy to think that we're supposed to go through this life without support. That's not what we're supposed to do. So finding some trusted support, getting some help, getting some support, looking into your local resources, also online. There's so many sex positive, anti-racist, all gender affirming counseling and therapy that's available for people online now. And because of COVID, that's a silver lining of COVID. Almost everything's available online. So I really encourage you to get support for yourself and your relationship. And then once you have support in place, you can start, I would say, moving towards some of these, sex education, sex coaching, tantric things that you may be interested in. But it's important to give you and your partner a stable foundation of support before you start digging in or opening that can of worms, so to speak.
Excellent. Yeah. That's pretty amazing. So what advice would you have for, I don't know, a couple who maybe been married a couple years and, they have kids and life is lifing and they just are not as intimate as they used to be?
Yeah.
Because the reality is that's what happens in life, right? Mm-hmm. And how do we pull that couple back together, not just on a sexual level, but on a spiritual level, emotional level, where they're like aligned?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing that I counsel couples to do is to prioritize connection. So very often what happens with couples, particularly with kids, right? So you come together as a couple, it's all juicy and amazing, and you get married, and it's awesome, and then you have kids, and then all of your attention goes on to the children. And that's what your life becomes about, like managing the business and the home and the kids and the family. So you take your attention off of the relationship necessarily and put it on these children and these other things. But once the children reach a certain age and they don't need you hovering over them all the time, now you can take the attention that used to go to them and put it back on your intimate relationship. And you have to prioritize it. And what I say is prioritizing connection. And connection can look a lot of different ways. Connection can look like, a couple times a week you go for walks together, or you take baths together. Or if you're working with us with Tantra, you're doing tantric meditation together. You're doing tantric breathing practices together. And so you're recultivating, again, heart-based connection. love-based connection. So it's not just about, penis and vagina, genitals, that particularly as we get older, once after the 44-year-old demographic, as we start moving into perimenopause, our bodies change and our desire changes, our pathways to intimacy change. And so really ensuring that, again, you're creating this anchoring into love and connection. And then from there, miracles happen. So, for example, in my own life, what I see is I have connection dates with my partner, and this takes the pressure off of like, oh, do we have to have sex? It's just about connection. But the more connected my heart is, the more I want to have sex with them.
Right.
That's a very cool thing. It's a good little feedback loop, right?
Yeah, that's how that works.
So when we focus on connection, then everything else kind of takes care of itself.
Wow. And so prioritizing that connection and making it important to say, okay, once a week or twice a week or however much it is, we're going to spend this time just connecting.
Just connecting, just focusing on each other, and that, and not like the movies, not the TV, but like being together without distraction and just allowing yourselves to connect, to talk and to share. And sometimes, you may even sit together and just hold hands and not even talk, but it's the loving connection that is critical and crucial. And that, that's the thing. People are always looking for sex tips, and tips are great. Mm-hmm. But if you're not connected to yourself and your partner, it's going to feel like cardboard. Like, it could be the best sex technique in the world. Right. But if there's no love, if there's no connection, it's empty. It's useless. It's meaningless. And so the best sex tip that I can ever give anyone is connect with yourself, connect with your partner. And if you don't know what connection means, that's the perfect signpost right there to get some counseling and get some support so that you understand what it feels like for you to be connected to yourself.
I love that. Oh my God. I'm so happy. There's this big smile on my face because I thought I was crazy. All this time, I really thought I was crazy because this is how I felt. Yeah. I was like, I gotta feel connected, and people need to be connected, and couples, I think that have children, yes, prioritize, but you need to feel connected and prioritize being connected with your partner. If you're connected emotionally and spiritually in some way, and it doesn't have to be like, let's get married and make 20 babies, but just let's be connected, you're going to have better sex. You're going to have better intimacy. You're going to have better conversation. You're going to be a happier person when you're with that person if you're connecting on all of those levels. And I think there's not enough conversation about that. Like you said, people always ask, well, what are the best sex tips? And they don't really take the time to understand that better sex comes from having better relationships.
100%.
And that includes with yourself.
Absolutely. I mean, this is why we connected. We're absolutely same page on that connection is the root and the core. And I love how you wove in the spirituality too, because what I see is like in terms of connection and dating partners, like a critical component that a lot of people leave out is that spiritual connection. And that's a core component of Tantra. So Tantra, when we are, tantric partners, we're connecting emotionally, we're connecting psychologically, we're connecting physically and sexually, but also spiritually. And where I see people, yes, it's huge. It's huge. The presence of God in our life, however that arises for us, however we commune with that, but that is an essential component to our humanity. And it's an essential component for longevity and connection, is being on the same page with your partner spiritually, emotionally, psychologically, and sexually. And that's what's going to help you navigate some of the, the choppy waters, the rough waters, the crappy stuff that happens in relationships, is that spiritual and that emotional connection.
That's amazing. I love it. What advice can we give to men? I know women are a little bit more forgiving of themselves as far as looking to be sexually liberated, to learn about Tantra, to learn about pleasing, to learn about self-pleasure. But men, not so much.
Yeah. So we actually launched a program a few months ago called Tantra Healing for Black Men. And we had about 20 Black men in that program. And so I'm just going to put it out there that like, there are men hungry for this medicine too.
Yeah.
And there are some excellent men. And I'm going to say like, I think I love men. So I think all men are, inherently awesome and just may have some layers of trauma to purify and clear out. But men, we are cisgender men, trans men. We are here for you. We love you.
Yes. I love it. I love all of them.
But one thing, so advice I would give to men. So this is the number one piece of advice I would give for you guys out there listening. So open your ears and listen. The best sex you will ever give to your partner is the sex that she feels safe enough to communicate to you about. And so what that means is your role as a man is to create a cocoon of safety or a space of safety so that your female partner feels empowered to tell you what she likes. And that doesn't mean she's up in her head like, oh, I want you to do this, this, and this. But to simply say, if you ask her, does this feel good? Yes. Would you like anything different? No. How does this feel? Oh, I like that, but could you use a little bit more pressure? Communication, honest, authentic communication is your number one sex tip for her having the orgasms of her dreams. And women, I'm going to speak to cisgender women, are often socialized to not communicate in bed. We're often socialized that good girls don't like sex, regardless of your demographic. It's like, you're nasty hoe. You're not supposed to like sex. And so guys know this, that we're not supposed to like sex. And we know that we're not supposed to like sex, but we do like sex. But we're playing this game in bed. Like, oh, well, I'm not going to tell him anything because I don't want to bruise his ego. Right. And he's like, oh, well, I'm supposed to know how to do everything because she's not supposed to tell me. And that's a cock block right there. That's going to fuck you up right there. So number one, letting your female partner know, baby, I love it when you tell me what you like. I love it when you tell me, yes, I like that. So next time I'm going down on you or touching you, I'm going to ask you if you like it. I'm going to ask you if you want something different. And every time you tell me the truth, it makes me so hot. So again, creating this environment where it's safe to communicate about our pleasure with each other.
Yeah, I agree. And I think I think a lot of women also expect men to just know. Yeah. And I think as women, we have to be able to communicate honestly and lovingly in a way that, no, we're not looking to hurt anyone's ego, but we do also need to be able to have conversations about what we want and feel empowered in that space as well. Because everything doesn't work for every woman. For women, everything doesn't work on every man, and being able to understand that and not assuming that somebody else is just supposed to know what you want or what you like or, what you need.
That's it. And that's such a brilliant point. And the reason that we as women, cisgender women, expect men to just know is because that's what we're taught. We're taught that we're not supposed to know. Like, when you were a little girl, were your parents people like, you should masturbate, you should learn your own body? No. They're like, don't, you will go to hell. Your hands will fall off if you touch yourself.
Yeah.
So how the fuck are we supposed to know? If we're not exploring ourselves, how are we supposed to know? And so of course I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I said I do encourage women. I tell women all the time when I do my live show to know your body and know what you want and what you like before, so that you can tell someone else. If you don't know, you can't guide someone else. You can't instruct someone else. You can't share with someone else if you're unaware. And so you need to know your body better than anybody else, because then you can teach someone and they can learn with you. But you can't just expect someone to walk in the door one night and know who you are better than you know yourself.
Exactly. And the key, and then the other thing to throw in the mix is this is where pornography can be very detrimental, because most cisgender men are watching porn to get technique instruction, and most of the technique demonstrated in porn fucking sucks. It's really bad technique. It's not educational material. And so if your partner is getting his instruction from porn, you're not going to be happy. It's way better for your partner to get his instruction from you. or her instruction from you. Make sure that you are letting your partner know what feels good to you. And you don't even have to know it doesn't even have to be intellectual. Like for me, the idea when I first started Tantra, like the idea of saying, well, I want this and I want that was overwhelming because I didn't even freaking know. I was more like a learn as you go.
Right.
Well, let's just try this and that feels good. And let's try this and woo, that feels really good. Right. So if you know what you like, it's wonderful to communicate that. But if you don't know what you like, that's okay too. You guys can discover it together. You just have to use your words. You just have to say and let your partner know, wow, that feels really good. Or, ooh, I don't like that.
Yeah, this is amazing. I'm so glad that you stopped by, Devi. I appreciate your energy so much. I've already downloaded the book so that I can read it. I think everybody should go out and get the book and have it on their nightstand, because we all stand to learn something every day. I always say this, whatever's not growing is dead, right? And so this is an opportunity for you to grow and learn and then do it on your own, but then potentially share it with your partner. And so if we're looking for ways of intimacy and communication, this book is a perfect segue to do that, right? Read it together, and then kind of enjoy it together and then grow together. So that would be my advice for the couples that are listening, or people that are single that hope to one day be in a relationship, or the relationships that they're in. It's still worth it to have a read so that you learn more about yourself and then you can better share that with somebody else. Absolutely. So that's my take on that. Debbie, tell everybody where they can find you.
Yay! So you can find me at authentictantra.com. That is my school. I'm going to throw it out there that I am the founder of the first and only government accredited school for tantric sexual healing in the world. So I did it. We did it. Yay. Woo, woo. So that's my school. And then if you want to find out more about me individually, you can go to deviwardtantra.com. DEVIWARD tantra.com. So those are my two portals.
Thank you so much. I think we got a wealth of knowledge, and I appreciate you for sharing with us.
It is my pleasure.
Hold on, Debbie.